So this is gonna be a quick video. So like I was saying, I have just spent the time just like going through, like, I swear to God, I just killed like 2 hours just going through like a million different TikToks and Instagram. And I shouldn't probably like dwell on that, I guess, but it's just kind of baffling when you can see that. And like now it's just like me looking at everybody, just like, oh my God. People who like, I don't know. So I say to myself, I have two ways of looking at this, right? I could be real judgmental about it, which is the feeling that sometimes takes over. That's the primary feeling. And that's a feeling also kind of like when I said like, oh my God, like I want to work from home. I don't want to be anywhere around these folks. These folks are rewinding in their head. They're all doing like that was how I ended up working at home. It was that kind of thing. Like I want to detach entirely from this society, right? And that's where you get those desires to be like, I need to go live off the grid, because let me tell you. So that sensation does persist, right? That still is kind of like a underlying feeling of being detached as much as possible from a lot of the things that go on in this little reality. But then the other part of me is like, you got to play somewhat smart in the sense that I am me. And then it's like, I think to myself, right? I say, I'm just going to give you an example because I think it's the best way to give an example. Like, for example, let's say the rapper 50 Cent, right? And I love 50, like that was like, we like grew up with the music in high school, listening to 50 in high school, right? So, and plus he's from Queens and I'm from Queens. So anyways, so you think to yourself, like, do you think he's a bad person? No. Do you think, I even had his book and everything like this, but you do know that he was also there doing his little one eye stuff and all that, um, when he was out there rapping. And I can look at it from the perspective of like, Lord forgive them, they do not know what they do. You know what I'm trying to say? I can look at it from that perspective. It angers me because these are, a lot of people in this world who have talent have had to like take that course of feeling like they had to resort to doing that to try to even just get numbers, and they still do. So, part of me is like, after at this point seeing how many of the Sims in this reality are in on that, because ain't nobody told me that little trick, obviously. All right, but since you see how they're all in on that, that's like the same thing if I say like, oh my God, I don't want to work with this person, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, and I don't want to, like, in other words, like, my whole thing in this reality, which is what the enemy has been trying to do, has just make everything that I do more difficult. Okay, if people were actually just doing their jobs like they were before I started waking up, and then me, like, for the most part, and just like, it wouldn't be an issue. The issue is now, after you've woken up, is that everything you try to do, the enemy is always there trying to do some BS to mess up everything that you have planned. Okay? And that is the issue. So, on one hand, you could say, like, I don't really have a problem with like you doing your craziness or here or there or whatever you're into, as long as you could be professional and do what I need you to do. If I contract somebody to do this or that or whatever, you know. But at the same time, I like think to myself, I'm like, for example, I use the bank. I do not trust the bank for the most part. The bank is a part of the matrix. You know that they're all part of the system, but we need to use the bank every now and then when we got to pay our bills, right? So you can't kind of all, just be like, well, I'm not going to just ever use a bank, and you need to use bank, or I'm never going to use a PayPal. I'm never going to, because all of these kind of things are just into the system. Only thing I can think to myself is that the faster and the sooner all the chosen ones mess up this system and make it so that people don't feel like they got to be doing that stuff to get it ahead, the better. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. The only thing I can think of is the reason why this has been going on is obviously because people have been trained to think that that's what had to have happened for you to succeed, because the chosen ones were asleep and that's what was going on. But thank God, those who were last will now be first, and hopefully I don't know, people can repent from their ways of bowing down to, you know, this the archons and the demiurge or whatever, and maybe hopefully as we go ascending, things might change or something like this, because that's the only way I can look at it without getting pissed off. That's the only way I can look at it and like not get pissed off about the situation of the things that I have just like witnessed or seen in the last like 48 hours. Okay. And it's my fault because I was like, there's like a masochist, um, going scrolling, looking at everybody like, oh my God, showing my kids like, oh my God, look, oh, like, oh my goodness. It's like I said, you really feel like you're in a freaking Twilight Zone. Like, what the hell is this? That's the only thing I can say is like, you know, as long as nobody like tries to pull that crap on my stuff, that's the only thing that matters. Because the part of me is like sometimes thinking like, how could you be advocating for Team Yaldabal and then I'm playing for Team Yeshua? Like we can't be friends, we can't play together. Like I don't know. That's how I look at it sometimes. But at the same time, it's like the same thing. Like I just gave the example, like you know, the bank and the schools and everything. All these institutions belong to this little stupid matrix. You know what I'm trying to say? And in the end, for the moment, we are still, you know, playing along. So I guess we got to play along a little bit longer until we can change it.